how we saved our clients $100,000 negotiating on their behalf this weekend. So this Saturday was an auction, and we were able to save our clients $100,000 just from what they were willing to pay for the property. And depending on when you're listening to this, you may know that we're heading into Christmas time, which means that vendors and sellers and the purchasers alike are trying to get everything wrapped up prior to Christmas. It's sort of just like a principle of the new year. People just want everything sort of finished. And yeah, that means that there is amazing opportunity to negotiate a bit harder on properties, which we will show you how that sort of occurred and happened from this example. So my name is Tristan Larkin. I'm here with James Rankin, and you are listening to Buy Property. So, James, how you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. So yeah, obviously this weekend, and you wrote about this in our blog, How's the Market, that we post every Wednesday on our website. Yeah, we sort of did a breakdown on how it was you were able to achieve this result. The first thing that you sort of touched on as being one of the key and important topics is the fact that you were able to go into this negotiation without any emotion.
Yeah, look, in terms of when we're heading into a negotiation, and I guess it's slightly easier for us because we're separated from it. So when we're going for an owner-occ purchase, like someone that's moving into the property, or we're going for an investment property, we still remove ourselves from any of that emotion. And that is a key differentiator as to why we can negotiate so hard. This was an investment purchase, and it had zero emotion. And there was slight emotion from the client. Like, I gathered over time, they wanted it. And the discussions that I had with them in the days prior, they wanted it. So if they had have been there at auction, they didn't come to it, which was probably the best play, knowing these guys and just knowing that they wanted it was probably something that we could easily delete from going against someone else. Someone else that's turning up and buying for themselves, they're going to have that emotion. I would say 9 times out of 10, people would push their budgets on the day of auction.
How often do you see there's a couple standing next to each other and they're bidding, and they're all confident, and then it gets to the point where the partner's looking at each other and they're giving them the eye sort of signals, like you can tell that they're towards their end, or maybe he's just gone over the number that they said that they wanted to. And yeah, you can see that there's so much emotion sort of exploding out of the surface. And it does, as much as this is bad, like the agents and the auctioneers especially are trained to sort of find that and then use it as well to play against each other. And some auctioneers are exceptional at doing this, which is, a massive benefit if you can sort of remove that from, especially an investment perspective.
Yeah, exactly right. So we do see it all the time where there's a little bit of a discussion, or they're getting on the phone, calling mum and dad, maybe for some more money or a friend or something like that. And it's not a good thing. That is showing your cards. Like, you're literally showing everything that you have to the other parties there. So yeah, we're very, if you saw me at auction, you'd think I'd turned up for a funeral, the way that I dress, because it's literally all black with sunglasses. It doesn't matter if it's, we live in Melbourne. Most of these auctions are in Melbourne. And if it's, 3 degrees on an overcast day, I'll still wear exactly what I wear every single time. And that's just, one, it's a comfort level. It's like my little costume I put on before I head out. And it's something that I know gives me comfort when I'm bidding. And because I do it frequently and I've done it so often in the past, I've worked out these little things, but that gives me the confidence. Like, I can be very, very assured of myself behind those sunglasses, and they're like a little bit of protection from the world. And I know that I've got my number that I'm working towards, and it just allows clarity. So again, like, we remove emotion from it, but then also I've done this multiple times. So yeah, it's a bit, well, I wouldn't say it's easier, but I've got a process for it.
So point 2 is we sort of started negotiations 2 weeks before the auction. So would you sort of suggest that as a normal strategy, or was that something that was particular about this purchase and this client?
Look, this was a higher price point. So we did have not as much competition on it. And it was probably something that was harder to finance too. So we took advantage of that. If it was in a market that was competitive, and we've done this before, maybe 3 or 4 months ago when we were bidding on that auction in Elsternwick, well underquoted. Like, it was very, very underquoted, and we did the same thing. We didn't lowball them. We actually gave them a fair offer, and that was straight out of the gates. Like, I went through it when it was brand new, listed, maybe even pre-market. And then when it came on and we saw the price point, it was like bang. I think we were $30,000 over the top end of their range. So yeah, we do it on either side. If it's underquoted, overquoted. This one was overquoted. And yeah, I think our first offer was $650,000 under the top end of the range, because it was, I think it was 650. So that wasn't
enormous.
Yeah, it wasn't received well at all. I got abusive phone calls, multiple abusive phone calls, saying, like, I'm going to delete the email. There's literally no point me even talking to the vendor about this. And I gave him reasons as well. Like, I just don't offer someone a low ball, it wasn't a low ball in the scheme of things now, but it had evidence behind it. So I gave him a number, but I also backed it up with XYZ, why I think that's the number and why his number is way off. So that's the difference. Again, we're not just ringing him up and going, oh yeah, by the way, I think it's X. I do that, but then I say, I believe it's worth X because I found property over here. I found this one at 14 Smith Street. I found this one here. And then he's really got nothing to say or come back to it with. So yeah, that's again our process. And starting 2 weeks out like that, we know we can probably, because you've got 3 days to play with in terms of outside of auction conditions. So that's the Wednesday. So I know that I've got 10 days or so to massage our pricing through. And if it gets us a result before the auction, then happy days. Like, I would rather buy before auction if we can, just to remove competition, but it's got to be on our terms. If it's on their terms, and look, it can be on their terms as well if they're in agreement to seeing where we see value at, and our values backed up by the evidence. So that's the part that I'll push. So during those 2 weeks, I'll push for that to go through. And if I don't get the result, then I'll run the gauntlet and go to auction.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, that leads perfectly into the point 3 that you have written about in the blog that we posted today, which is you did provide the evidence. So for someone that's wondering how they might do that, if there's a pre-auction offer they're thinking of making, how is it that you provided the evidence to the agent?
So we've obviously got our systems that we go back through, CoreLogic, Price Finder, all of those types of things to find when properties have been sold and how much they sold for. You can do it for free as well. There's online websites that you can go to, the Valuer General's office, but also realestate.com is the easiest. So you just go on there or domain and find some sold properties that are like for like. So you want to have the apples with apples on these particular properties, or like any property that you're looking at. We can go a little bit outside of the box and work backwards if we can't find something exactly the same. But my suggestion is go on the platforms, hit the sold section, and then search for properties within that area. Like, try to keep it pretty close, like 500 meters. And they've sold in the last 3 months, especially over the last 3 years. We've had so much turbulent time, like up and down, up and down, up and down. We want to take data that's relevant, and within the last 2 to 3 months is probably relevant. And then that's what we provide the agent. So, in terms of a structured email, it would be, here's our offer, here's reason ABC.
And then point 4, to sort of tie that all together, is that essentially you stuck to your ground. So you put the offer in, you started 2 weeks before the auction, you provided the evidence that it wasn't just a lowball offer for the sake of a lowball offer. Like, we did find comparable sales that made this price make sense. And then even when the agent was sort of still going pretty hard to try to get the number up, you stuck to your ground and said that, no, we're not moving. This is where it makes sense. This is where we need to be. And what sort of happened there, like, the agent then had to reduce their quote. And then not only that, but it was many conversations that I'm sure that they had with the vendor to adjust their expectations.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, we're quite good at reading the agent and what they want to happen on auction day. It's very, very few out there that don't want it to sell on the auction day because it loses momentum. They've worked 3 to 4 weeks on the campaign, all of that stuff. There are other guys out there that don't really care and they'll just list it the next week. And they use it almost as a lead gen tool to get people interested in the auction. But in terms of us sticking our ground, we knew that there wasn't really many people on this particular property because of the lending capacity. Like there was a lending like differentiator on this one. You had to have a particular amount of deposit, and that wiped a lot of people out. So I leveraged that, which is why I didn't adjust my price. If I had have been in a more competitive market and the agent wasn't calling me back, because this agent was calling me back, and another sort of barometer to say where, you know, maybe his best shot at getting this thing sold. And if it is that competitive type property, sometimes it's better off just running to auction, to be honest. Like you hold your ground at a level and then you just run it to auction. So we would always go through the steps. So we would work out what that property's worth, like where we see value up to and what we're willing to pay. Then we would maybe get to that number before auction. If we didn't, this is in a competitive world, then we just go to auction. And I've seen it many, many times before where auctions have sold below an offer that was presented prior, like heaps of times. So yeah, and that can be obviously in the negative effect for the person selling it. But yeah, it's just that process. So understand where it is. And I ask a lot of questions. I'm always on the phone to the agent to understand how things are going. I talk about a lot of stuff as well through that, just trying to get information out of them. So it might be, you know, like how's the campaign going? How many people have been through it? You know, did you know about this one, or did you see this property that sold? How's the vendor going? Who else is involved in it? You know, if there's kids involved, is there an accountant involved? Like all of these little bits and pieces that you put together. It's like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. You're always putting it together over time. And then you can build out your strategy. So come auction time, you've got a base to go off.
One of the other benefits of auction days and essentially this time of year is that emotion actually flips to the other side as well. So the vendor can get emotional about this purchase. And, you know, they've got this set day in mind that they think that they're selling the property. And that's what the agents told them. And it's been advertised throughout the entire campaign. So when it comes to auction day, they can be in a position where they're thinking, oh, you know, I just want to get this sold. And that flips the cards into your hand where they may reduce their price because they just want to get it done. They're sick of it. You know, how many opens they have to have. They just want to get it sold.
Yep, spot on. That last point is, I'll just sort of expand on that. We want to have no emotion on our side. We want all the emotion on that side. So we want to, you know, essentially we're starting like a little fire over there with these pre-auction offer. Let it sort of simmer away, burn away before we get to the auction. And then when it's that thought is in the back of their head, knowing that I do just want to get it sold, right? So we've adjusted the expectation so heavily that, you know, and this was again backed by evidence. We're not just chucking a number in there. So when you have got that backed by evidence number, it's much easier to leverage again that emotion from the other side to say, let's just get it done today. Like I want to jump in the car knowing that we've bought it. I don't want to have to leave here and start the search again and all that kind of stuff. Like if they know that and that we're an okay person, and then like the likelihood of us getting a deal together, you've got to walk a fine line with pushing it. And we pushed it pretty hard, if I'm honest, at the end of this negotiation, where it got to like smaller numbers, and I was just like, nah, not doing it. We're here, like we're locking it here. And when I'd sort of walked away from that, I was like, mate, I pulled my keys out of the pocket and said, I can jump in the car. It's no stress from us. I'm here to do a job. I know where this thing sees value at, and that's sort of it. and the agent had to go back a final time, and that's when it got ticked off. But yes, sometimes people will just go, nah, throw their hands in the air and walk away from it. And obviously, you would have to do the negotiations afterwards. So you've got to read the play on that. And yeah, sometimes it can backfire. Obviously, that would be it would be rare because you're there, you're still standing there, like it's just let's get it done. This contract's right there, and that's another thing that I said to the agent was he was suggesting, oh yeah, but we've had interest from other people, and I said, yeah, but they're not here. I can sign a contract right now. So that is again something that the and what you were saying, mate, the vendor just wants to get the thing completed on that day.
So I'll summarize that down into the sort of three takeaways. And that would be one, always check the agent's quoted selling range by doing your own research and finding comparable sales. Two, stick to your own guns and don't let emotions come into play, which is difficult depending on if you're owner occupier, you're planning to live in the home or not. It's very easy when you've got professional representation. And then three, don't let yourself get emotional or carried away on the day, which is usually something that happens on auction day.